Have you ever stopped to wonder if that old saying, deep down, we're all the same, is, well, actually true? Today, we're diving into a really thought-provoking book called Being Different. We're going to explore some pretty profound and maybe even challenging distinctions between what the author calls Western and Dharmic worldviews. Traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. So let's get right into it. All right, so where do we even begin with such a huge topic? Well, the book kicks things off with this incredibly powerful, almost jarring analogy to frame the whole problem it's trying to tackle. Yeah, think about that image for a second. A tiger doesn't merge with its prey, right? It consumes it. The author uses this to introduce a core concept called cultural digestion, and let me tell you, it is anything but a gentle, friendly exchange. And here's the thing, this is not a two-way street. The whole point is that when a concept from, say, a Dharmic tradition gets absorbed into a Western framework, its original context, its depth, it can all get stripped away. What you're left with is kind of a hollowed-out version of the real thing. And this immediately brings up a huge question, doesn't it? I mean, the author knows exactly what you're thinking. Hold on, but aren't we all just the same? Isn't universalism a good thing? The book's argument is that this very well-intentioned idea can actually be kind of harmful because it just papers over these massive differences that really, truly matter.
So what is one of these crucial differences then? Well, one of the absolute biggest, according to the book, is the role of history itself. This is a fundamental split in thinking, and it has some pretty huge implications. You see, this one simple question reveals everything. For some traditions, the answer is a hard yes. For others, it's not even a factor.
And while this table just lays it all out crystal clear, look at that row, dependence on historical intervention. For Christianity, it's a solid yes. That means faith is anchored to very specific, one-time-only events in the past. But for Hinduism and Buddhism, it's a no. Their core truths are seen as timeless, accessible right now, completely outside of history. So let's break that down. For one worldview, history is absolutely essential for salvation. If those events didn't happen exactly as they're told, the whole foundation gets shaky. But for the other, spiritual experience is something that's timeless, it's internal, and you can verify it yourself, right here, right now, whether those ancient records exist or not. Okay, so this focus on internal, verifiable experience, well, that leads us right into the next major split, the role of the physical body. Is it some kind of obstacle, or is it actually a tool for wisdom? I mean, check out this quote. The author points to this really strong tradition in the West, where the body has often been viewed as a source of sin, of conflict, basically an obstacle you have to overcome to get to the divine. But then, on the flip side, you have the Dharmic traditions. And here, the body is presented as the primary tool for spiritual growth. It's not a problem you need to solve, it's the very instrument you use to experience wisdom directly, whether it's through yoga or dance or art. All right, so we've got history, we've got the body, and that brings us to another huge divergence, the whole attitude toward order versus chaos, or simplicity versus complexity. So you've got this one approach that, as the book describes it, really wants to create order by putting everything into these neat little boxes, good versus evil, us versus them. But then you have this other approach, which is just comfortable with the mess. It's comfortable with the idea that reality is this swirling, interconnected flow where clear lines are often just an illusion. And get this, here's a mind-blowing real-world example of that in action. The Kumbh Mela. We're talking about tens of millions of people gathering, pretty much without any central control. And it works. It's proof, the author argues, that this immense complexity can organize itself beautifully without being forced into some rigid top-down structure. Okay, so what's the point of all this? What's the ultimate takeaway from highlighting all of these fundamental differences? Why does it even matter? And you might be thinking, doesn't this just lead to isolation, to cultures retreating into their own little silos? Well, the author tackles that criticism head-on. That's not the goal at all. In fact, the book points to all these powerful examples like Japan, France, and China as proof that you can absolutely assert a distinct cultural identity while being a huge player on the world stage. Being different doesn't mean you have to be isolated. And this right here, this is the core message. The argument is that just tolerating another culture is not enough. Because if you think about it, tolerance can subtly mean, I think I'm right, but I guess I'll put up with you. Real respect, that comes from actually seeing, understanding, and valuing the differences, not just trying to erase them for some false sense of unity. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question to chew on. What if the goal isn't to find one single worldview that fits everybody? What if the future is more like a vibrant ecosystem where all these different ways of seeing the world can learn from each other and grow without one having to eat the other? It's a really powerful idea to think about,